Okay. Before everybody starts rushing off for Erfurt today, I want to give just a little bit of what I see, what are my expectations for what may be developing in the community in the next 5 to 10 years. And again, they're somewhat personal. They're somewhat what I see from what I'm hearing and observing and working with, and people I'm working with, and systems I'm working with. But first of all, got a funny mode. I didn't know I did that. I didn't do that. Okay. But I'll accommodate to it. So the foci of MARC are that it is to carry data that is specified and formulated by cataloging rules and conventions. And so therefore MARC, as I think I've heard both Tom and particularly Marg point out, have multiple descriptive rules. We have to accommodate different principles. We have to accommodate different models in MARC. We have to accommodate subject data, because when we talk about RDA, remember, we're not talking about subjects. We're talking only about descriptive data. And we have to accommodate scripts and languages, because RDA and other and subjects, for that matter, address the content and the real sort of meat of it, but along with that, you have to deal with multiple scripts and multiple languages when you start to actually encode the data. MARC was supposed to try to leverage the computer environment potential for data sharing and cost savings. So what's important there is there be widespread use, which we've achieved and which you've helped to augment. And we also see what's coming up now is the free data movement. I can remember 15 years ago there was a lot of focus in various MARC communities on how much they might be able to get by selling their bibliographic data, because they wanted to pay for the process that they had to go through and the money they had spent to create that data. But I think that increasingly now people, and certainly the Library of Congress, are looking for ways, in fact, to simply expose it and as a part of this free data movement that is sort of in the community. It's also supposed to support multifaceted retrieval, and that's why we have a lot of coded data, and that's why we parse data, I believe. So those are some of the things that MARC is trying to juggle all at once when it in the markup. So what are my expectations? First, I see more use of XML in an evolutionary manner. First of all, MARC XML, using it for exchange instead of MARC 2709. As Marg alluded to, we've had a little bit of discussion on the RDA MARC discussion group, advisory group, as to what we might do with respect to being able to include URIs, and we see a very relatively easy way to do it with MARC XML. It's more difficult in the 2709 environment. On the other hand, I floated this at a meeting last week, and there was people were not happy with the idea that there might be something that you added to MARC XML that you couldn't take back into 2709 if you wanted to convert back and forth, because you may receive the information in the MARC XML, but your system may prefer to load 2709, and they wanted to be able to do that. So maybe we'll have to, but I see us moving slowly toward accepting and using MARC in an XML shape rather than 2709. And basically what that does is it drops the directory. That's essentially what happens in a MARC XML. It drops the directory, so then it takes the tag and puts it right at the first of the field, which is the way you see it on the screens all the time anyway, but it's not the way it is in the record. MARC XML, being very detailed, may be best for detailed cataloging, but not all cataloging is going to be detailed in the future, I believe. I see doing some work on unbundling it, what I call unbundling, separating out some of the technical data as extensions of MARC XML or MARC data. we're already seeing some of those things coming up now, or duplicatively, in things like premise and some of the other formats, technical data formats. And so I'm not sure, but it would be good to try to identify those data elements that were in the MARC format, because we want to exchange that technical metadata, but end users are not really concerned with seeing that or knowing about that technical metadata, and it might be better packaged as an appendage that isn't always exchanged. I would like to see taking advantage of the new freedom with attributes and subfield markers, what you might call augmented MARC, and that relates also to the use of MARC-XML as an exchange format. And again, the reversibility to 2709 is a concern. But attributes in XML are essentially enable you to have, instead of 2 indicators, as many as you want. And subfield markers in XML, you're not confined with just a single character marker, and you've got A through Z and 0 through 9. You can go into double characters. You can do whatever you want. You have much more freedom.